Dynasty versus democracy. This is a subject which has been projected, or rather pushed, to the center stage of Indian political consciousness. But unfortunately, this has not been examined in a dispassionate, objective, intellectual way, so as to understand the historical and experiential truth of this contrast, or this binary, if you like a more academic term for it. Now, what has brought this to center stage in the Indian politics is the entry of Rahul Gandhi into politics, and in order to discredit him, dynasty was invoked as a synonym for all that is wicked, evil, and third-rate in the human possibilities as relevant to the political sphere. In contrast, Sri Narendra Damodar Das Modi was projected as a commoner who came up from the lowliest of low, denoted by the idea of his having been a chaiwala, and therefore embodying in himself, as it were, the antidote to the malady of the dynastic liabilities that hang heavily on the Indian political heritage. This is more or less the political plot making, if you like, that has happened in recent times. The question we want to consider in this video is, what is the truth of all this? Rhetoric in public life will always go in one direction, in the direction that would most suit the interests of those who generate this rhetoric. Rhetoric at one stage was the art of persuading people regarding the truth of something. If you look at the discipline with which rhetoric was practiced in ancient Greece, and to a certain extent also Rome, ancient Rome, the purpose of rhetoric was to persuade. Persuade who? Persuade the people. Persuade people of what? Persuade them about the truth of the matter. So persuasion, first of all, exists in a climate of opinion or in a culture which abjures violence. If you can persuade people with the power of your sword, or if you can scare them or intimidate them into agreeing with you, then you don't need to develop your rhetorical or oratorical powers. Not rhetorical, but oratorical powers. So the very fact that you resort to violence also means that you are actually introducing a cultural issue, a cultural aberration, with serious consequences. But since that's not my main theme here, I will not digress into that important area of concern. So, rhetoric was the art of persuading people regarding the truth of a particular matter. Now, when this rhetoric about the danger of dynastic incursion into the temple of Indian politics was blared with unprecedented intensity and spread, nationwide spread, ever since Rahul Gandhi entered politics, not enough attempt was made to put that in historical or intellectual perspective. Now, the climate for discrediting dynasty already existed, because after all, dynasty belonged to the old order of things, say the monarchy, primarily the monarchy, and to a far lesser extent the aristocracy. You really can't separate monarchy from aristocracy. So that particular order of things, which is now gone with the wind. However, certain principles survive. The fact that a particular order, social, political order is destroyed or dismantled does not mean that its basic principles disappear. Principles die hard. It is far easier to dismantle a system than the principle on which the system was erected. So the dynastic principle continued, and people continued to enjoy hereditary advantages in spite of the fact that the political matrix, the political framework for legitimizing them had long been dismantled. So that is why this idea of dynastic inheritance, dynastic continuity, or the perpetuation of dynastic privileges became an issue. Now, there is a very important aspect to this political discourse, and I am going to state it because it is completely obscure. No one makes a mention of this, and that is the basic problem with the dynastic principle is that of inbreeding. Inbreeding. That is to say, power, the exercise of power, or the right to exercise power, is strictly limited within a very narrow range of possibilities within the same family. That's what I call inbreeding. What's the problem there? The problem here is that inbreeding, whether it is in the intellectual life or in biological life, results in impoverization. Nature stands by variety. That's why cross-pollination is important. Cross-pollination is nature's way of affirming the vital relevance of diversity. If you have only one species, and within the one species, one gender, say the female plant, and no male plant, the female plant also will die. Or if there are male and female plants in one area and they only breed among themselves, and no different pollen is brought by, say, bees or birds, etc., from other trees of the same kind, the vitality of that will also diminish, and over a period of time it will die out. These plants will die out. So nature stands by diversity. The vitality of nature is predicated on diversity, whereas the dynastic principle thrives by inbreeding, which excludes diversity, the incursion of the new. Therefore, when Sri Narendra Damodar Das Modi was presented as a man from an entirely different background, the man from the soil of this country, as it were, the chaiwala, it was done deliberately and very wisely. There's a lot of historical wisdom and background behind that projection. He was introduced in that manner not really because those who did so believed that it was a great thing, it was a great blessing to have been a seller of tea somewhere, in which case they should be selling tea even now. They would disdain to have anything to do with making and selling tea, but yet they'll project somebody as coming from that background, and therefore as having a great merit. But there is a point, there is a positive point which we should never lose sight of, namely that it is good for the democratic context as against the dynastic context to have diversity, variety, etc. And it stands to reason that maximum diversity is found not among the social elite, the secular democratic aristocracy, if you like today, the counterpart of the old times aristocracy is the elite of today. Whereas the aristocracy or the monarchy of ancient days was based on the ownership of land, ownership of wealth, inherited wealth, and exclusive exercise of power, basically the sword and land, easy to remember. The merit, the power, the worth of the modern elite is not derived from that source. It's derived from the income that is generated, the extent of money or wealth owned. So, billionaires are our new gods. Secondly, the kind of talents that you have. For example, if you are a very, very ordinary man, socially very ordinary man, you've come from, say, the poorest of the poor, and you are a great author and you have been conferred the Nobel laureate prize, the Nobel Prize for Literature, then you are a king. Then you are a king. Or consider science. Your family background is the lowliest of the low, but you are a brilliant scientist and you come up with a great discovery and you are conferred the Nobel Prize for Science. Then you are a king. It's a talent. But there is a third option, and that is commerce. You use commerce and And the fourth option, of course, is capture political power. Now, the point is this. We despise the old dynasty because it is against the law of nature. One aspect of which I have indicated by saying that the dynastic principle stands by and falls by inbreeding or limiting possibilities within a very narrow catchment area, and which is bound to degenerate over a period of time, as indeed both monarchy and aristocracy have degenerated because of this principle. Of course, in olden days, kings used to intermarry among royalty in other countries, and to that extent, the vitality of the royal stock was maintained, but then again very, very strictly limited ranges of possibilities. So, when the dynastic principle was substituted with the democratic principle, presumably what happened was that the opportunities were opened up. Now one did not have to be a member of the dynastic clan or the dynastic group, children of kings or children of barons, lords, children of aristocracy, in order to occupy positions of importance. Anyone could aspire for it. That's equality of opportunity. So it's thrown open. But the problem is this, and this problem has not been mentioned by anyone. And I would like to put the focus entirely on this. What happens when a commoner, empowered by the changed circumstances of democracy, reaches a position to which only the dynastic offspring could have aspired in olden days? For example, let's say the office of the Prime Minister of India is equal to the office of the King of England, minimum. As of now, it's 10 times more important because of the decline of the British Empire, the virtual disappearance of it, not merely the decline, but also the disappearance of the empire. But there was a time when such a comparison would have elicited laughter. Now the point is, when a commoner reaches that position, which is de facto the office of the king, if you like, the democratic king, how will he conduct himself? This is the question. How will he conduct himself? Will he conduct himself according to the mindset of dynasty? That is to say, the mindset of exclusion. What is the operating principle of dynasty? Exclusion. Only people within my homogenized group, my family is a homogenizing group, and within the family only the eldest son, primogeniture, should occupy the top office. Nobody else should. It's anathema to think of somebody else. It is treason to think of somebody else aspiring to that position, and that person must be eliminated. All the psychology plays this in the idea of Congress Mukt Bharat. That's why I'm flagging some of these things. They have not been connected to each other by any analysis yet. Much remains to be done. So, rather than abjure the dynastic principle of excluding others, excluding people unlike oneself from this domain of possibilities, what has actually happened in the age of democracy was that yes, the dynastic mechanism has been dismantled, but the dynastic soul, the dynastic spirit still animates the structure of democracy. And therefore, and this is particularly evident in the outlook of BJP, and within BJP the outlook of Modi Shah combined, nobody except Sri Narendra Modi should occupy the office of the Prime Minister of India. It is blasphemous, it is anti-national, it is rebellious, it is seditious for a person to aspire to that office, because that is set apart from Narendra Modi. And after Modi's time, somebody of the Parivar camp. That's why way back in 2014, Sri Amit Shah declared that for the next 50 years, nobody except a BJP leader will rule India. You must understand the historical and psychological background to this. Now the point is, and this is where the BJP has great reasons to worry. This idea of the dynastic principle of both of exclusion and of homogenization, the irony is that people in this country don't realize that they are not being told that homogenization is essentially the spirit of the dynastic mode, because the dynasty always functioned in terms of homogenization, and homogenization with the family as the unit. The difference is when you move from that old dynasty to the Sangh Parivar, it is a new version of the old dynasty in the sense that while the family was the unit of homogenization in the old dynasty, in the new democratic dynasty, it is the Parivar, the ideological Parivar, that is the framework for homogenization. And you need a lot of historical sense to realize that both are the same. Essentially, they are the same. So, the supreme irony of the members of the Sangh Parivar discrediting Rahul Gandhi, members of the Gandhi Nehru family, as dynas is not understood by people, because this framework has not been provided to them. And what is that framework? Both the Congress manifestation of, shall we say, the old dynastic mode, by which one Gandhi Nehru had to be followed by another Gandhi Nehru, and Tina. There is no other alternative factor. The Tina factor, which was introduced during the time of Indira Gandhi, Indira Priyadarshini. The same principle is now at work, except that the focal point has been shifted from the Nehru-Gandhi Parivar to the Sangh Parivar. Both are Parivars, but within the Parivar to the Modi-Shah Parivar. That's a Parivar, virtually like a father-son. It's a father-son duo. Amit Shah is the political son of Narendra Modi. Very loyal, absolutely loyal, and next in line. And nobody realized that this is the Parivar principle returning with a vengeance, like the rain has come back with a vengeance. You can hear that. I love rain. This rain falls into my soul. I love especially morning rain. Now it's 5:30 in the morning, and the rain comes as a background music to our thinking. So this similarity must now be understood. Why should this be understood? And the BJP think tank must understand it more than anybody else. Why? Because if the days of the old dynasty was numbered, the day of the new dynasty will also be numbered. This will not continue, this cannot continue. It is against the logic of history, it's against the logic of nature, it's against the logic of life itself. So already the signs are very evident that without understanding the theory, the intellectual, historical background of it, the people of India have lost interest in this. They're getting tired, they're getting exhausted, they're getting fed up. And all the more so because this great rhetoric is bringing no value into their life. It means nothing to them. So it's high time that the BJP think tank and those who are close to the Modi Shah combine and wish well for them. I also do that, I wish them well. But they have to be truthful. And if they think that they can secure their position by merely flattering the new kings, then they will do these kings a great disservice. Only truth will help them. And the truth is that they have to now radically rethink this entire approach, because they have become the new dynasty. The same spirit animates. You may have killed Caesar, but Caesar's spirit is still ruling you. That's according to what William Shakespeare wrote in his history plays. I think it's Julius Caesar. So, this is the dilemma and this is the crisis that the BJP is facing, and to the best of my awareness, the think tank of BJP has not put its finger on this pulse, that there is an ideological crisis. And the significance of Rahul Gandhi and why Rahul Gandhi is a life and death issue for the Sangh Parivar is that he aggravates that ideological crisis. And the greatest irony of Indian history is that the inheritor of the old Parivar dynastic succession is now confronting the animators of the new Parivar dynasty with the real alternative to the dynasty. And that is, go to the people of India. Don't use the people of India as political fodder. Serve the people of India. Identify yourself with their real interest and long-term interest. Reconfigure the life of the country to be in tune with the new realities that exist today, which is a people of unprecedented awareness, a people who are aware of their rights and entitlements, and a people who will not be misled or led by the nose like asses are for a long period of time. They may walk along for some time, but soon enough they realize that this is a bus ride to nowhere, and then they will react very strongly. And I can see the reactions beginning already, and therefore I thought it would be worthwhile for everyone concerned, including my brothers and sisters in the BJP camp, to be aware of this ideological crisis that is staring them in the face, whether they'll have the honesty and the courage to recognize it and to engage with it, and to evolve ways and means of the corrective ways to cope with it better in the days ahead is something that we'll have to wait and see. I'm an optimist, and I believe that the BJP think tank, being as competent as it has always been, except that sometimes I used to feel that they lack a bit of historical sense, and they sometimes confuse mythology with history and history with mythology. But for that, very competent think tank. So they will realize the truth of what I am saying, and if they do, there will be very interesting changes in the days ahead. Please watch out for these changes if and when they emerge. So with that I close. Thank you very much.